Hi, I'm Aled Roberts. I'm the Welsh Liberal Democrat Assembly candidate in Clwyd South. Well, we would actually create a specific GP access fund, and we're putting money into that fund to actually look at some of the problems. Clearly, there's a need to introduce perhaps specialist nurses into GP practices, and really, it's, in my opinion, a lot of the problems at A&E currently are because people are unable to get appointments at their GPs, and clearly here in Wrexham, that's a specific issue. There's currently a cross-party review called the Diamond Review that's reporting in December. Evidence to that review to date suggests that the current system is unaffordable. I know that the Welsh Government had to scrape money together to actually finance this year's fund. So we think the biggest issue for students are actually living costs, and because of that we would actually introduce a maintenance grant, £2,500 per year instead of the current tuition fee grant, and at the same time release about £80 million of funds to Welsh universities because their performance is starting to be affected by the money that's taken out by the Welsh Government to actually finance the tuition fee grant. We've obviously put education right at the heart of our policies. We were the party that introduced the pupil deprivation grant, which gives extra money to children on free school meals because it's wrong that your life chances can be dictated by the age of 7. As far as our secondary schools are concerned, I think we have to be very careful that we don't rely just on 5 A stars to C as a measure of success, because my measure of success is the value added to each individual student. Yes, there may be issues with regard to performance in some schools, but the way that we get over that is to actually create a supportive process for teachers in particular, and actually help them through whilst actually maintaining challenge at the same time. Everyone has to be rooted in their communities. I got into politics because of the situation that I found the area in when I returned from university. We'd seen the closure of Bersham Colliery and Brumbo Steelworks. I could have just moaned, but instead I got involved at a community level. I, after that, sort of got elected in 1991 as a borough councillor for Ross, and I've tried my best at all times since then. At the end of the day, it's up to other people to decide whether I have what it takes to be a top-level politician. I think the main issue is actual sort of the gap as far as the people who are on benefits are concerned and those who are wealthier, and that applies whether you're townie or whether you're a jacko like me at the end of the day. And I think what we have to do is we have to strengthen the economy here, because I certainly believe that the best way out of poverty is through employment. And for too long now, ever since devolution, we've not been able to close that poverty gap to the extent that I would want. I think we should start off on the basis that everything can be devolved to Wales if at all possible. I don't agree that Wales should have different powers to Scotland. I also think there's an issue as to who exercises the power as far as England is concerned. But clearly, although I'm quite nationalist with a small n, I do believe in the UK as a nation state, and that means that I would always assume that things like foreign policy and defence, and I think welfare benefits, to be honest, because I don't see the sense in actually devolving welfare benefits down to a sort of a devolved nation level. I think they should be run from Cardiff. I think there's scope not for business rates to be devolved to local authorities, but certainly for local authorities to retain more of the business rates income than is currently the case. I think we have to be careful, you know. At the end of the day, areas like Wrexham might sort of succeed in retaining more of the business rates because of the amount of industry, etc., that we have here. But I believe that it's also responsibility of more affluent areas, certainly areas like Cardiff, to ensure that either the valleys or rural communities in West Wales don't suffer. The problem is if it's totally devolved to local authorities, there are some very rural areas, obviously, that would lose out significantly. We think that there's an issue with regard to skills as far as the young people are concerned. So we clearly believe that more of our FE education should actually focus on the skills that industry requires. But clearly, there's also an issue regarding apprenticeships. We are committed to actually looking at creating 140,000 apprenticeships over the course of the next Assembly term. That's quite sort of ambitious compared to what other parties are saying. But at the end of the day, what we have to look at is quality as well, you know. I think too much in the past, we've actually, in Wales, depended on keeping people off the unemployment register, but not actually adding much as far as their outcomes are concerned. I've always lived in this area. I brought my family up in this area. I didn't intend to go into politics, to be honest with you. It's something that happened. I was quite happy being a backbench local councillor at some time. I was lucky enough to become the leader of Wrexham Council. I'm passionately committed to this area and would want the opportunity to try and do that. But clearly, you can only do things if you actually get involved in government at the end of the day. And I think that we've got a lot to offer as far as the government's concerned because of the way, even as the smallest assembly group with 5 members, that we've been able to influence things like the pupil deprivation grant, like the safe nursing bill, which makes a difference to people's everyday lives. The ideal coalition is a strong Welsh government that has a full and effective programme for government for Wales. And I think the last 5 years with a minority Labour government have shown that we really have avoided, or they've avoided, taking some radical decisions that are needed to improve health and education in Wales. So it's the programme for government that's important to me, not necessarily who you enter into coalition with. The ones that come to my casework most often, to be honest with you, are farmers, you know, who have huge amounts of red tape and, more importantly, plenty of examples where government records aren't really kept up to date. So they go through all the loops regarding getting subsidies, etc. And clearly, the big issue, I think, in this area must be small businesses, where there is a great deal of confusion as to whether it's local government or the Welsh government that is responsible. And I think we need to streamline the whole basis of government support to those small businesses, whether, you know, they're sort of commercial businesses or agricultural businesses, the 2 examples I've given. The first thing is we've got to move towards power sources being locally developed. It doesn't actually make much sense for you to lose so much electricity, transmitting electricity over long distances. But, you know, that is going to be a long-term issue. I mean, there have been examples, particularly in Germany, etc., where local transmission has been used. But if we're actually looking at a grid system as we are at the moment, what we're looking at is not the case that we totally cut ourselves off from England, but the fact that, you know, Wales accounts for actually producing sufficient electricity from renewable sources to meet its own demand. But clearly that is very much dependent on getting full devolution of energy in the first instance, and actually taking some very long-term decisions, which certainly the UK government, since we came out of coalition, has been avoiding. And, you know, the decisions that they've taken on solar, wind and even tidal energy currently are something that I very much regret.